So for my project, I did home automation with Amazon's Alexa. But before we go into that, I'd like to talk a little bit about my starter project, which was the TV Be Gone. Essentially, it enabled me to turn off any TV within a given radius. Now, on top, one of the fundamental skills that I picked up from the TV Be Gone was that of soldering, which is really important to electrical engineering. However, for my main and intensive project, I'd be focusing a lot more on programming and computer science. Now to demonstrate. Hey Alexa, can you open particle dust?
Particle is open.
Alexa, what is the density of the dust?
Dust density is 48 micrograms per meter cubed. This means that the dust density is low enough to be ignored for people who are sensitive to air quality.
So essentially what I've done here is that I've taken... So what I've done here is I've taken a particle photon microcontroller, a dust density sensor, which is this, and Amazon's Alexa, so that users who are sensitive to air quality can come into a room and ask Alexa, hey, what's the density of the dust in this room? And then, oh, she's gonna go say it again. But essentially, what happens is people don't know what the density of the dust is in the room prior because you don't have those kinds of sensors. So Alexa will be able to give off that information if you ask her. So, so a lot of things that I took away from this project, especially computer science heavy, was that this sensor is essentially nothing. It's just a sensor. You need some kind of controller or device to actually read information from that sensor. And I thought that was really interesting to me because when you hear the word sensor, you think about a variable, you think about some kind of display giving you that. But in reality, a sensor is nothing. You need some kind of microcontroller, which is what this is, and that's what's actually doing all the work. Now, what happens here is that this sensor has a variable that this microcontroller reads. This is just like Arduino, which is a lot of what Pure Blue students use, but I use the particle photon microcontroller because on top of Arduino, it can read information, but on top of that, you can also put that information in the cloud, which is really important because Alexa is a cloud-enabled device. She can only talk to things through the cloud, and that's why I had to use this versus Arduino. So what happens is the particle photon microcontroller reads the variable on this dust sensor and puts that information in the cloud. Now, I have specific code for Alexa, I have code for the microcontroller. The code for Alexa gives the location of this specific variable in the cloud, and then Alexa can pull that variable from the cloud and read it out. And she'll compare it to a value recommended by allergen specialists across the country, and then she'll give information saying, hey, should you leave this room or should you not if you're a bit sensitive to air quality. Now, I think, so that's exactly how it works. I think the most challenging part of this is I've taken 2 years of Java intensive programming courses, and none of that even was anywhere close to preparing me for the code that went behind this project. Because not only was this in a different language, this was so new. In Java, what I'm typically used to is that my teacher would tell me, hey, make a class that simulates a random dice generator. That was nothing close to what I'm doing right now. There's event handlers, there's all this certain different stuff, but eventually I was able to draw connections between traditional Java programming and this kind of programming. There are methods, there are parameters, there are functions that perform things, and you get something out of those functions. And that's exactly what this was. It's just on a bigger scale and a much more applicable scale. Now, I feel that the biggest takeaway I had from BlueStep is that it was good to finally see my work go into something, because traditionally you just have programming and you run the code and something happens. Well, this actually is something I could hear something happen, which I thought was really cool. I was not just using my eyes to see what happened. I could hear something happen. I think I like that senses kind of thing. And yeah, thank you. That's my part.
Can you use this thing outside?
Oh, this?
Yeah.
If you have somewhere to plug it into, yeah, you can.
So what is a cloud? Can I explain further?
The cloud?
What's a cloud?
Oh, okay. This question. All right, so I like to think of the cloud as a computer, a really big computer, like a bunch of computers put together. And yeah, I just need to put that. Essentially, Alexa can't talk to anything directly. She can't talk to the sensor. She can only talk to this bunch of computers. So this thing puts that information in a bunch of computers, and then Alexa takes that information from the bunch of computers. The cloud to me is just a computer. So.
What modifications would you want to add?
Oh, so I'm really interested in the smart home automation kind of thing going. So in the future, maybe I could do something that like like for as of now, temperature regulatory systems that are in thermostats, they're kind of inefficient. So say for example your house is below a certain temperature, it'll start heating up until it gets to that temperature. But what will happen is there'll be this overlap where it heats up too much, so it goes above that temperature again, and then it has to cool down again. So there's kind of this inefficiency. So perhaps I can make that process more efficient using smart home, not necessarily just with Alexa, but with the coding part behind it.
So it looks like you used a language different from Java, right?
Yeah.
And you use some APIs that were provided by Amazon?
Yeah, so I use AWS Lambda, which is their API service, and I also had to use Particles API. So APIs are basically like a set of rules or instructions that a certain device or like company, I guess, follows. And as a programmer, if you're trying to develop an application, you need to understand how to translate one API to another, how to link those together. And that was probably like the most intense part of this project, understanding APIs and how to work them together.
I'm sorry, I didn't really like it. Was it Lambda?
AWS Lambda.
Was this the first time that you'd used Alexa and the Amazon APIs?
Oh yeah. I have an Echo at home, but I've never tried to tinker with it at all. Yeah, this is my first time. I've only done Java.
Outside of measuring dust, what else would you want to use this for?
Like I said, some kind of temperature regulatory system. I thought it was, like my original idea, I thought would be so cool, and I think they have it already going for Domino's, but I was thinking I could hook it up with the Grubhub API, and I could just say, hey, get me a chalupa, Alexa, and I would get it delivered to me through Grubhub. Like I thought that would be really cool. That's like a little bit of a personal investment, but there's a lot of application in the smart home industry. I mean, I haven't come up with anything yet, but there's so many devices out there, but it's still a developing field. I think there's room to a lot that you can do with Alexa or just smart home in general. Yeah, Chinmay.
Yeah, let's say that if I don't have access to cloud, and I know that Alexa is a cloud system, but how you want to make it, I'm like, do you have any idea how you can make it work without the cloud? Like, if I don't have access to the cloud anywhere?
Oh, like the same project without the cloud?
Yeah.
I would perhaps have to use an Arduino and upload it to my computer, but I think Amazon is a cloud-enabled service. I couldn't think of a way to do it without the cloud.
So I'm like, if you say about dust sensor, then let's say that I'm not an engineer. Sorry, I'm not an engineer. I'm like a mountaineering guy, and I'm going to some desert area or some mountain, and I want to check that dust sensor or anything like that. How are you going to do it? Like, I don't have Alexa over there. I don't have any cloud system over there. So how are you going to make it work?
I would have to turn these two into a device with a display where you can read it. Like I wouldn't need Echo, but that's the best thing you can do. Take a microcontroller, a dust sensor, and attach some kind of display so we can pull it out and see what the dust density is in a desert, for example. But yeah, that's the only way I can think of it. You wouldn't need the cloud for that, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.